Pacino.
Here.
Evans is absent. Heiser White. Moody.
Here.
O'Toole.
Here.
Schneider absent. And Matamore.
Here,
That's 5 present, 2 absent.
thank you. Before we go to approval of agenda and minutes, if I could address the audience, I really appreciate the citizens coming out for meetings. We don't get them very often. And it seems like the west side is always here. And so yay for the west side. You're the most involved community in Laramie, in my experience. So just to go over the 2 items that concern you. The first one is just a change in the comprehensive plan. And there will be a time period for citizens to comment upon that, but it is just a comprehensive plan. And the second will be the actual zoning change. And then you can comment on that. We don't restrict your public comments to the 3 minutes that the city council does unless we get really crowded. Doesn't look that bad tonight. Just we do ask you be brief and on topic. And thank you very much for coming. So does staff have any changes to the agenda? No changes. I'll ask for a motion.
Motion to accept agenda.
Second,
Second.
Moody and Buccino. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. The next will be the meeting minutes from the previous meeting. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to vote.
And second? O'Toole and White. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. The next is citizen comments, and these are non-agenda items, things that are not on the agenda tonight. And no action can be taken on them, but we welcome any and all comments. Is there anybody who'd like to talk? Anybody online? See anybody? All right, we'll carry on. Planning Commission, you're up. Staff reports and comments.
Mr. Chair, could we have a moment for announcements?
Yes, you may. It's your time.
Okay. I just wanted to make the Planning Commission aware that October is designated by the American Planning Association as National Community Planning Month. We will be presenting a proclamation to City Council at their October 7th meeting. And we would love for you all to be present because they'll be speaking to the importance of planning, the importance to this body here in the role of planning in the city of Laramie. And they always take a nice picture up there with, as you probably have seen at city council meetings, and who would want to miss that? But anyway, October 7th, they're generally read right at the beginning. So 6:30, and we'd love to have you guys there for the work that you all do. So.
Well, Donald and I will have to dress up a little.
No.
Chris never does. Thank you. Anything else? Are there any disclosures, ex parte
Sure.
communications? Yes.
Just a heads up, this computer, the chamber's computer said that there might be a restart. So we might lose the computer later on in this meeting. I'm not sure, but I do have it recording on my laptop. So
Okay.
that should continue on.
So if the screen goes black, that,
Yeah.
all right. Any disclosures, ex parte communications or conflicts of interest? Hearing none, we'll kick, well, Donald?
I bumped into Wendy Chapman at the store recently. And she told me before I'd read stuff about the issue going on the west side. So we discussed it and then we had an exchange of emails. I sent her some information she had access to publicly, but I did talk to somebody on the west side.
Well, come to think of it, I forgot about that. My wife and I conducted a class on sewing machine maintenance and cleaning on Wednesday and last week, and Wendy was there. And we talked about it briefly, so anybody see any problems with that? I mean, it's a small town. We all know each other. All right, I don't see any problem with it. Staff, any problems with it? We will carry on. Uh, current planning projects.
Good evening, Honorable Chair, members of the commission. I'll be presenting on the conditional use permit application for the Albany County School District #1 property at 1721 Park Avenue. This request is from the school district, was presented and compiled by Tri-Hydro Corporation. We do have representation from both of those groups here this evening. I'll make that aware. And this conditional use permit application is required for the use of a school resource center at the old Vital Elementary School, which previously was a full elementary school serving 100+ children. So this property is zoned R1, single family residential. And as I mentioned, our use table requires for a school resource center that a conditional use permit be submitted. So a little background. As you know, it was very public when it happened, but Vital Elementary was closed to the actual school. The actual school was closed in 2024. After the school board voted to consolidate its student population with Spring Creek Elementary. The building has remained vacant since that time, and the school district now seeks to repurpose the site for administrative functions such as office space, staff trainings, and boardroom space. No new building additions are proposed. I want to make that clear. All the proposed uses would be taking place within the existing structure. You know, when we first were presented with this idea, we thought that putting this vacant public building back into use could work under certain conditions. Could also reduce the potential for blight in the area. As we see unused buildings, especially in residential neighborhoods, you don't have to go far to see kind of how quickly a vacant building can become an eyesore. And just with the old Slade on 11th Street, obviously this would increase neighborhood security. And I just want to, it is in your packet, but you can see that the new site plan does increase landscaping, buffers and landscaping in general across the most visible corridors of Sheridan and 18th Street. As you know, for conditional use permits, there are required findings that need to be met. I'll just quickly go over those. As far as ingress and egress go, existing vehicle and pedestrian access points will remain unchanged. With a new sidewalk connection added to 18th Street, it will improve the walkability of the site. Parking and loading, the use for the configuration of the inside of the building would require 27 spaces. These spaces, we've worked with the applicant to be they have ample adjacent right of way to an on-street parking to park on. So we were able to take those spaces into account. The elementary school is the only use on that block, so there's ample space for parking. So we did count those towards those 27 required spaces, so that would be met. 2 new striped ADA spaces are going to be provided on the west side of the site on 18th. Bus lane will be removed and restoring that portion of curb for use. And given the lower demand for administrative office space, we see this parking strategy as appropriate. Noise, odor, and offsite impacts. The proposed use is going to be administrative offices only, so we don't anticipate that those noise, odor, offsite, or any other offsite impacts would be generated. And of course, we took into account too that a school with arguably exponentially higher impact to the neighborhood was there before, when we're talking about far less trips, far less traffic. So that was taken into account as well when addressing that required finding. Refuse areas, trash service is going to remain the same, as you can see on the site plan on the north part along Sheridan. Nothing's going to be changed for utilities to the building. Screening and buffering, as I mentioned, there is going to be some additional landscaping on Sheridan, but then there will be a cedar fence as well to provide additional buffering along residential edges. And that, if you remember, there was a chain link fence there before that was, after the school was decommissioned, was taken out. And so we see that as kind of an improvement to the site as well. One single non-illuminated monument sign is proposed at the Park Avenue entrance. So this sign permit would need to, this isn't part of the conditional use permit. The applicant will need to go through a separate sign permit to make sure that all codes, especially we want to be sure that given the residential nature of the neighborhood, that any lighting of a sign, it's confined and so forth. And there is specific code that addresses that. So in our estimation, the lot is sufficient in size and shape for the proposed use. I mentioned before, it really will be a quieter site. Not saying people don't like a school in their neighborhood. It definitely has some nice things associated with it, but as far as like offsite impacts and impact the residential neighborhood that surrounds it, we thought it would be far less and appropriate for designating this conditional use for. So application, as always, was routed to all appropriate departments and agencies. No major concerns were identified. Notice was also published, mailed, and posted on the property, and we received only one inquiry as to what was happening on the site. So, in conclusion, staff finds that the application meets the required findings and recommendations of approval. And we did list some conditions in the report, but those are pretty standard conditions that will be based on the site plan that you see, and that will be approved, that the development meets those criteria. So I will open it up to any questions. And also, as mentioned, the applicant and the applicant's representatives are here as well for questions. Chris?
27 parking spots are off parking. I was kind of curious what the south part of the property, which is a big asphalt and playground area, why that isn't used for parking, or is it?
Honorable Chair, through you. Yes, that was a playground, and in order for the applicant to use that as a parking lot, it have to be approved curb gutter, drainage, landscaping, perimeter landscaping. It's not proposed for use as a parking lot because of all that adjacent on-street parking that we as staff felt was appropriate. So it's not going to be converted.
What if the residents want to use or off-street parking? I don't know, it just seems big space that would be where the parking should be, even if it had an additional cost. the street for. What's that?
If I may,
Yeah,
offer
Carl.
here. So there is code for where you park in residential areas. So you can't, even a resident across the street from this site couldn't park there for more than 24 hours at a time. It's the adjacent property owner that has the right to park there all the time. So just making planning commission aware of that is it's not taking away parking from the neighborhood per se.
I get it, it's just sort of a friendly neighborhood thing that this might not be parking available. A large. Parking lotty looking things, so you put that, it's just a thought.
Sharon, you would,
Well, yeah, while we're on that, because that was the area of the site plan that drew my attention too. And I just wanted to make sure I understood the graphics. So because it is reorienting clearly the entrance to this building is on Park Avenue, right? And that's where the sign is going to be. Oh, I see the new front entrance is more on the east side. So they're parking on the street and then the asphalt remains, but the playground will still be a playground and the community will be able to use it that way. People are using it now, I noticed.
Honorable Chair, through you, I would defer to the applicant for that. It's.
Because for me, that has a benefit and I think it's a little safer probably not to have. I mean, I like that aspect of it. And I think if you tried to use the asphalt as parking, it might not be quite as conducive to using the playground. But when the applicant comes up, we can clarify that it appears that it's being preserved. And so the playground remains an asset to the community.
Because it depends on whether it's allowed and.
Right, so we'll see.
Playground.
Mhm. Thank you.
anybody else? My only other question would be for the applicant, so. And it's all on the same thing. I think we all caught the same thing, so. Anything else, Philip?
No.
Would the applicant care to speak?
Chair Board, Randy Wilson, Chief Operations Officer for Albany County School District. I can answer some of your questions that I've heard already. We are looking at making that area a parking lot. Our biggest concern was to first come in and get people in that building. We couldn't be in that building because it was not the use that was designed. So we were actually told by the city of Laramie that we couldn't use it for a time. We don't want a slave to happen to this school where it's being broken into 2 or 3 times a night. So we wanted to make sure that we got the conditional use permit so we could get some people in there and do some things, and then we will continue. Because the parking lot is another item to go through with the city. We are planning on doing that. We're actually getting bids for design of that to meet the city requirements, to make that look nice with islands, landscaping, etc. I don't know what other questions you have for me, but I'll stand for them at this time.
I had one, will the playground remain?
The playground will not remain. We do have Washington Park right across the street. We are repurposing that playground to Spring Creek Elementary, where we move the kids so that they have a bigger playground area at Spring Creek. So we're going to be repurposing that playground equipment next summer to Spring Creek Elementary School.
Okay, anybody else? Donald?
Just roughly, do you know what kind of expense you're looking at? I know the school district is kind of skint at the moment. What kind of expense you're looking at to convert that area into a parking lot? Do you just ballpark?
Chair, Board. It's expensive to do a parking lot. to meet all the requirements and everything. I'm guessing it's somewhere between $450 to $550,000 to remove the asphalt, to put in the required landscaping and everything is the estimate we're at this time.
So do you know at what point the school district would like to do that? I mean, does it have money in hand? Is that a kind of a low priority or a medium priority?
That is a high priority for us, I would say. We are looking at, like I said, I've gotten 2 quotes already for design of it. Once we have design, then we'll know what the money is, and we'll be able to determine our priority at that point. Until I know until we have a rough order of magnitude, I would like to tell you we would like to have it by next summer, but I just can't do that until we get the cost estimates in from the design.
That's great. Thank you.
Yep.
Just out of curiosity, how much work are you gonna have to do to the interior of the building? Is it gonna be a gut or?
Chair, no, this is not going to be a gut. We call it it's not going to be a Taj Mahal. I would call it more of a, if it was a car, it's more of a Yugo style. We're going to go,
Throw some desks in there and go to work,
we
right?
are. We're gonna replace some carpet. We're gonna do some painting. We're gonna do some a couple, I believe, 7 walls in the classrooms. Just divide them up into smaller areas, and paint. But other than that, it's a pretty plain.
So it's a cost-effective method of getting more office space?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Donald?
Not a question, just a comment. I think this is a really good use of the building. I'm really glad to see this being used, and especially folks moving in fairly soon just to prevent any vandalism. I just wonder where the bulldogs are going to end up.
Pardon me, where the what is?
Bulldogs are going to end up.
No, well, they're bull sharks now at Spring Creek. So we combined the two and done a transformation of them.
That had puzzled me. I'd seen they changed it to bull sharks. I thought I must look that up. I didn't know what the hell a bull shark.
Yes.
All right.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's a public, anybody in the public care to address this issue? Anybody online? Well, seeing none, we'll carry on. What's the will of the commission?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
I'm prepared to entertain it.
Okay. We do have some recommended conditions at the end, so I want to make sure that's included there. So I'm going to move to approve a conditional use permit for the conversion of the former Bedell Elementary School into a school resource center within an R1 single-family residential zoning district located at 1721 Park Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming, 82070, based on findings of fact and conclusions of law and subject to the conditions as specified in the staff report.
Second.
Motion by Buccino, second by Moody. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none. Just a quick question. Do we need a roll call vote on a conditional use?
Voice vote.
Okay, it's passed unanimously. Thank you. Let's see. Flip page over. See what we got next. And Emma, it's all yours. Take it away.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair and Planning Commission. So the first item before you is a request to amend the city's comprehensive plan, specifically the future land use map for the 4G Enterprises property. This 32-acre site sits along the Laramie River between Snowy Range Road and West Garfield Street. Staff also recommends including the triangular 1 and 1.5 acre parcel just south of the 32 acre parcel to ensure consistency and avoid spot zoning. And we do have applicant representation in the audience tonight. This request is being considered concurrently with a rezoning application for the same property. And so while each decision is independent, the rezoning must be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So R3 enables a range of residential zones from single family to apartments. And at a time when Laramie is thousands of units short, this comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning provides a realistic opportunity for infill development. Plans such as the Housing Study Action Plan 2030, Wyoming Community Development Authority Housing Report, and Thrive Laramie significantly support this. Currently, the property is designated as a future land use of urban commercial. It reflects the type of pedestrian-oriented mixed-use environment we see in downtown and does anticipate some residential in the form of apartments over storefronts. However, the challenge is that urban commercial primarily supports commercial zoning districts and does not directly implement the R3 zoning that has been requested. And you can see page 2 in the future land use classification to zoning table in the staff report. And that kind of shows the guide of what zoning districts are allowed in each future land use classification. And one thing to keep in mind as well is that this table reflects where the city's zoning was when this comprehensive plan was completed in 2007, and our zoning has evolved since then. So urban commercial can only translate to NB, B1, B2, and C2 zoning districts, more similar to what you see north and south of the downtown area. The requested future land use is urban residential and can translate to R2M zoning and R3 zoning. Additionally, R3 has been expanded over time to include some conditional commercial uses like light makerspace, grocery stores under 5,000 square feet, and professional offices that can be appropriate in a residential setting if approved by Planning Commission. The applicant is therefore seeking to change to urban residential, which is specifically intended for neighborhoods with a variety of housing types, attached and detached homes, townhomes, apartments, and condominiums, designed around walkable streets and connectivity. And staff reports this request because it meets the required findings. So 1, several plans have identified new housing need projections and zoning districts have changed over time slightly. For 2 and 3, with housing need, again, Laramie is several thousand units behind demand, and there are those 3 major plans that substantiate it and highlight the shortage of land available for diverse residential development. Urban residential provides a clearer policy basis to support housing overall than the urban commercial future land use. For point 4, this site is positioned for redevelopment. Its adjacency to a stable neighborhood, Optimus Park, and the Laramie River makes residential more compatible and offers infill opportunities that can, in some instances, be cheaper due to decreased infrastructure cost rather than developing greenfield sites. So think those sites outside of Laramie that are just kind of pasture. And then 5 is not applicable. Additionally, I do want to acknowledge as well that this site's industrial history reflected historical planning practices that placed heavy uses next to working class immigrant neighborhoods. And while urban commercial does not allow industrial, shifting it to urban residential explicitly centers housing. There have been 4 public inquiries that have raised concerns about flooding, traffic, and the triangular parcel. Staff notes that if development is proposed, stormwater detention will be required so that runoff does not exceed historic levels, and traffic studies will also be required if thresholds are met, with mitigation required as needed. For the triangular parcel, the future land use amendment and rezoning does not change ownership rights besides what uses are allowed on the parcel. If the owners of the larger parcel wanted to work out an access agreement to come in off of West Garfield, that would be between the 2 private landowners, as with any private property in town. This is only a decision on future land use and zoning. So in conclusion, urban residential is the more appropriate choice for this property today as a future land use. It better reflects the city's current housing priorities and guidance of adopted plans, and staff recommends approval. And so now, while I have mentioned zoning as well throughout this, as the two are linked, the decision before you for this application is just which future land use is most consistent with where Laramie is today. And one other thing to note is that Planning Commission is the decision-making body on this, with it going to City Council for certification, which they can potentially remand back to Planning Commission. But with that, a supermajority is required. So 4 affirmatives would be required no matter how many are vacant today. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over for any questions. Thank you all.
Donald?
I didn't have my hand up, but I will.
Oh, you-
Hand up.
Mike, you were here.
So Emma, so this is in the flood zone.
Mhm.
Can you, and you were kind enough to send me a link to the flood zone, and it's especially in the northern part of the, the northern part of the parcel, and then there's a funny little squirrely area that runs down to the central part of the parcel. What are the implications for that in terms of we're putting a bunch, we are planning to put, we may be planning to put a bunch of houses in a flood zone. Does that have implication for people being able to get a mortgage?
And that's one thing, Chair, through you, I do want to say that that is kind of outside of the scope of the comprehensive future land use decision. However, portions of the property are within the regulatory floodway. So that is kind of, if you've seen the map, it's that blue section that runs right along the river. And so no development would be allowed within that, as that's where the moving water would be during a flood. However, as you also said, there are pieces of the property that are within the 1% flood, so kind of the 100-year and the 200-year historical flood range. And so we actually have a section of code, it's chapter 1520, that deals with floodplain management. Sometimes there can be other considerations with insurances on that, and for that I would have to do more research on how that would impact mortgages. But looking around the community, there is quite a bit of development within both the 100 and 200-year floodplains as well.
Anybody else? Jenna?
About the app, why the applicant is what it was. Can you explain that? So the applicant is the Laramie Chamber Business Alliance. Can you explain why it's originating from them as opposed to anyone else?
Chair, through you. As with any application, sometimes the owner brings someone else in to apply for them. It can be a matter of time, resources, and I can let this applicant speak to that. But it's kind of similar to, let's say, for a site plan where you may see an engineer be the applicant versus the owner. And so I'll cede it to the applicant if they have any points.
So this property is owned by one person?
That's correct. The one piece with that is that staff is recommending the inclusion of that other second triangular parcel south, which is owned by someone different.
Has the owner of that parcel to the south said anything about being rezoned?
Chair, through you. So Philip had sent out a letter to them and we had no response. I did receive a voicemail and I called back and had a conversation with Shelley from Ellen Becker Oil, and it sounds like they're related to that property. And they had some concerns and inquiries for more information, which I provided them.
Donald?
Is it a problem if they decide they don't want to play ball? Does that derail this in any way?
Chair, through you. So within your staff report for the rezoning, as that's what it would relate to, I have included that Wyoming state statute has if 20% of the land area protests it with signed signature, then it would require, again, a supermajority to be passed. And that can also be the same of 20% of surrounding ownership within a certain footage threshold.
I think you misunderstood my question. My question is that small triangular parcel, which I had trouble identifying on the maps we were sent, because I assume it's on the south end, but I couldn't see where it was. If the folks who own that, it's a 1 acre parcel approximately, if they decide they don't want to play ball and they want to be exempt from this whole process, does that in any way derail the rest of the project involving the 30+ acres?
Chair, through you, since we're only considering the future land use and the rezoning at this point in time, what it would do is create more of a spot zone within our community, which we have tried to avoid, as that can really erode consistency and logical zoning lines. You can see it in other communities where there's really jagged edges, little tiny parcels that stick out into others, and just kind of makes it more difficult for citywide vision and cohesion. So that would be the impact with the rezoning and comprehensive plan.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Sharon?
I would just like a little bit more information about the timing. So we are currently in the process of reviewing the comprehensive plan. And so I'm curious what the timing is on that as it stands now. And I can understand why there might be a need to move forward, because if there's something that may be taking longer than may work within the applicant's time frame. But I would be interested in knowing that timing and if there's any opinion or view from the staff on why it would be important to move forward now with a change to the comprehensive plan and not wait and include it in part of that more thorough process.
Chair, through you. So with the comprehensive plan update that we currently have, and I'd encourage anyone in this room to get involved as more opportunities arise. But it is typically a 2-year process, and we just started this spring. So we likely aren't going to be looking at completing this for another at least a year, maybe a year and a half. And then Chair, through you, what was the second part of your question?
That partly answers it. I was just wondering what the staff's view on doing something now, the sense of urgency, why that would be important.
Chair, through you. So the unique opportunity that we have today is that a private landowner is voluntarily coming, the large 32 parcel acre landowner is coming to voluntarily downzone their land from industrial to R3, which is normally very rare, as again, less uses are allowed. So it can sometimes affect value in that way. And so that's why we have a more valuable opportunity, instead of sometimes when the comprehensive plan and we have the policies to enact that vision, then sometimes then we'll go ahead and start doing the large sweeping changes of future land use and the rezoning efforts.
Sharon, if I can, being on that comprehensive plan committee, the top sails of the ship have just barely broken the horizon. Right? We're a long way off from seeing the hull. So it's quite a lugubrious process. So we're nowhere near there yet. So I wouldn't want to see the landowner have to wait for the new comprehensive plan. That could be, detrimental to his interests. Anything else? Donald?
Does this have any implications for the Greenbelt Trail that currently exists, or maybe any extension of that into the future?
Chair, through you, no, it currently has no impact on the Greenbelt Trail that is already set aside. However, in the Parks and Rec plan, there is a call for a little bit more natural space along that kind of, especially the more intensive flood area, outside where that regulatory floodway and where that green belt is currently. So through the site plan or platting process, if that ever were to occur, that's when that would be addressed. However, overall though, in the Parks and Rec master plan, there's more of an identification for a larger park south of Curtis Street, since this area is already served by the Greenbelt and by Optimus Park. However, if the landowner proceeds with any development applications and does have an interest in including those pathways, then that could be something to note.
Okay, thank you.
Chris?
Am I correct in assuming that if that 1 acre landowner doesn't want to be rezoned R3, that they could, you know, say, I want to maintain an island of U1 or U2, whatever that is possible for that landowner?
Chair, through you, it would depend again on that Wyoming state statute protest process that's been outlined with those 20% requirements. Because again, think about at one point in time, the city's overall zoning would have had to have gone in place. And again, not everyone was likely happy with their new designations. However, that's why we have the nonconformity section within the Laramie Municipal Code to still offer landowners existing who may not currently match with their overall zoning to continue.
Any other questions? Donald?
Just roughly, how many households are we talking about if components of that community decide they really hate this idea and they'd really like to see a petroleum manufacturing unit right in the center? How many, so it's done on the basis of proximity. Roughly how many households are we talking about?
Chair, through you, I have not done that research yet for in terms of ownership for how many letters we notified. And again, this is talking 300 foot from the affected area. And I did include that triangular sliver since staff was going to recommend including it. That was around 22 to 30 owners who were notified. Within, I think for the protest requirements, it has to be within 150 feet, not including roads. So it'd be some portion smaller than that. And again, it's either 20% of land area or 20% of owners for that protest.
And you're talking about the whole, whatever it is, 32-acre parcel, including the triangular parcel, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Emma. Would the applicant care to speak?
Honorable Chair, members of the commission. My name is Josh Boudreau with Laramie Chamber Business Alliance. While I did not write the applicant, my boss did. He's not able to make it here today. But as the Chamber Business Alliance, we do support the comprehensive change and the rezoning change. We have been working with looking at the housing shortages that have been noted and cited many, many times. And we're looking at this. We have a potential landowner who is willing to make the change and go through the process. And we see nothing but good things that can come out of this. I would also like to point out that should the comprehensive change move and the rezoning pass both tonight, that doesn't mean that houses are going to start going in tomorrow. We're a long ways away from that. Through the city process, you would have to go through preliminary plat, final plat, and so on and so forth. So it's a long ways away from that, but I would ask that you vote in favor of that, and I would stand for any questions.
Donald?
So the city is going through the angst of trying to come up with a stormwater management plan, which is going to be expensive and might be slow, and we don't know where the hell it's going to go. Is the intention here that whatever the city planners and city council decide is an effective stormwater management approach? And if I remember correctly, some of that was going to go in on the west side. Any kind of development will wait until that storm drainage goes in, right? Or do you know whether the plan is start building straight away and then we'll deal with the storm drainage after the fact? Do you know?
I don't know 100%, but from my experience from construction, stormwater management would be handled right up front, and an engineer would do that, whether that's detained on the site or moved to a different area. That would be an engineer's call, and I don't think that it would wait on anything. I think that if this were all to move forward and accordingly as the preliminary plat would be moving along, planning department would require identification of how water and stormwater is going to be detained and or moved. I don't know if that answers your question, but I hope it does.
Do you anticipate, I mean, I know the plan is very soft and what we saw is basically an outline and that could change quite radically. But it does mean that a lot more impervious surfaces are going to go in beside the Laramie River. And do you anticipate an increase in flooding in the neighborhood, in other words, in the west side?
I don't know that I'm qualified or know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's a fair answer.
Any other questions? I would like to, thank you very much. I'd like to ask Philip a question if I could. Staff or Emma may be able to answer it if you could. How long a process is a preliminary site plan? If these get approved tonight, what are we looking at? I know we have a schedule, and as I recall, the schedule is about 6 months. But to get
Since
through.
I have the microphone, I'll go ahead and steal Emma's thunder here. But yeah, I mean, we have our submittal schedules online, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
where you can see, from the date of the application till a decision is made by city council, and it is a lengthy process. Usually a lot of back and forth, based on the quality of the application. The number of reviews that city staff has to do with the applicant drives that timeline as well. But I would say in general, with public notice and everything, the quickest it could get done is 3 months.
Yeah.
But it oftentimes takes longer because of subsequent reviews between the applicant's engineer and city staff.
Yeah, and as most of us know, we have some 300 units of development that have been sitting around for at least a year between the preliminary plat and the final plat. We still haven't seen final plat on those for over a year on some of these.
Honorable Chair, I should have mentioned, I want to clarify that the 3 months would just be for the preliminary plat.
Yeah,
It can't
and
run
then-
concurrently with the final plat. It'd be the same process with the final plat. So 6 months.
So if it was really quick, it would be 6 months.
Yes.
The other question I have, as one of the requirements after, if the zoning goes through and before the preliminary plat, would soil samples be taken? I mean, I can imagine there, you'll find free running water at 6 feet or less on that parcel being right next to the river.
Yeah, and again, if I may, Emma, I think Mr. Boudreau is right on with the engineering design report that would go into any platting of this property. Those types of conditions would be addressed, and well, they would be addressed with the design. So if they're hitting groundwater at, a couple feet, obviously we'd have to look at something different than a traditional retention pond or detention pond.
I guess just hitting that a little further, I mean, I realize it's zoned and it can be developed any, right? So it's not like right now it's an open space or something like that. However, it probably acts as an sponge and has for probably decades. And with changes in recent weather, it's probably even more important. These areas that are close to rivers be able to attenuate floods. So I guess my question is more for the city, for planning. Historically, it's my understanding you can look at from the 100-year flood event. I think probably everybody in this room knows we're having this more frequently than every 100 years. So are we looking at data any differently, just so that any development in that area isn't based on conclusions that we know probably aren't, or data that isn't the best in the number? Just curious.
Honorable Chair, through you, it is a good question. And I would say that the engineering department uses historical data to determine what the pre-development runoff was. So we unfortunately, we don't have somebody from engineering here with us this evening to answer this question, but whether those standards are changing, whether it's a moving target, so to speak, we could get an answer if that's the board's desire as to if those pre-development runoff rates are changing with the times and how often those are updated. It would probably be a better way to put it.
So we're gonna get at least three more cracks at this development, preliminary plan, a site plan or a final site plan, so. And then whatever comes in, well, maybe two, but maybe three more cracks at this to make sure it's a good plan, so.
And Chair, through you, just kind of the overview of the potential options. And again, this is in place like whether, someone decides to develop industrially or if someone did want to develop a single family home or multifamily home. So if, let's say it was rezoned to multifamily, if it's 1 to 3 units, then only building permits would be required. And again, kind of think back to the W Hill annexation conversation, which are held to International Building Code, which does again limit drainage going on to other people's adjacent parcels. If it's 4 units or more, but just kind of the one development, that's when the site plan would be required. And again, it does go through a very rigorous public works process and engineering design report review. And then if they were going to separate it into different lots, that is when the preliminary and final plat process would occur. So I just wanted to make sure that you all had a good overview of all of the different development situations.
Donald?
So the kind of sketch of what might go here if there was multifamily developments, just for my information and for the information of people in the room, that includes a tentative plan to put apartment complexes on the site. If apartment complexes go in, how high can they be? How many stories?
That would depend on their plans, but the height standards in R3, I believe, are 50 feet, and industrial, they are 65 feet. And again, I do want to kind of caution you all that we have to be really careful in talking about the future land use and the rezoning, as these are not development applications. It's simply what out of all of the uses is most appropriate for these parcels at this point of time for the city.
The thing is that housing is what's driving this bus here. And you look at this property and it just screams, as we've all done, like, flooding. And so whether we're setting the stage for residential development in an area that's gonna get flooded in my mind, and so I think there's a certain discomfort level that, yeah, we don't know what is going to be developed there among the range of options, but that's the logic we're given for why we're doing this. I mean, it's this service area number 4 has natural areas on both along the river and on the other side of this property designated. And I assume natural areas because there's things going on that you wouldn't want to develop on, and this property is like sandwiched right between those two designations in this map.
Chair, through you, so with the industrial, there is also that flooding risk as well. So I don't want to be concerned that it's just housing that could be at flood risk. And also too, we do not have a zoning district specifically for parkland. That's set aside throughout the development. There's the open space designation, but again, that's more of a holding pattern until the city develops enough to then rezone it again. So this is more of a conversation of what is most appropriate for this parcel in terms of potential usages, with the knowledge that, again, according to chapter 1520, the floodplain would need to be addressed.
So it's all work out in the wash one way or another.
Generally does.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't.
Chair, I might I am thinking about it a little bit differently, because I think this decision is really, it does create the possibility, which doesn't exist now, that it could be used for residential. And I actually was surprised when I looked at the existing map. And that's one reason why I'm kind of curious about what people might already start, have commented on, to have those 2 large parcels. And one is, we're not even talking about the one to the south will remain industrial for now. But I'm pretty uncomfortable with having industrial right up against the river. Yeah.
I think it's sort of like property that is kind of undevelopable if we're having 500-year floods on a regular basis. So then unless you put a flood retaining wall through there and go New Orleans with it. Anyways, we're off.
Yeah, the other thing that makes me comfortable with the limited action we're being asked to take here is that there are it's important to distinguish between control of stormwater runoff during the construction, which is in place regardless of the size, I think, because those are state requirements through Wyoming DEQ. So that will be controlled in the immediate short term once things start happening. And it is an important question to consider, well, what happens when it's developed? But as you were saying, that there's a process and hopefully it will be informed, better informed by the discussion that's happening now as part of the larger stormwater plan and funding it, that will influence that. So I'm comfortable with making this limited change to the comprehensive plan now.
Yeah, I think we haven't had the engineers at it. The engineers could do a lot. I mean, I've seen lift stations. You can go to Louisville and see walls to keep the Ohio River out of the downtown area. I mean, there are always engineering solutions. They don't always work. But Dick Cheney isn't going to blow up any more walls in Laramie, I don't think. But we're going to see, we're going to probably have to see some serious engineering on this as part of a preliminary site plan to deal with it. That's my feeling about it. I think my questions I'm going to hold most of mine until we get to the actual rezoning. But I think the highest and best use of this parcel right now would be as residential. The discussion seems to be centering on what type of residential and, you know, how we're going to deal with it and what we're going to build is part of a whole nother process. But I have no particular problem with making this, you know, an R3 plan. I have other questions about it, but, you know, I'll wait for the zoning process. Does anybody have anything else for staff? If not, I will, Donald? Yeah.
Just a comment. I'm always struck by the use of the term stormwater control or the use of the term control. And I just want to remind folks that in the flood that happened in Cheyenne in, I think it was 1985, August 1st, 1985, where 10 people died, we really can't control major floods. We can, from engineering, we can ameliorate them. The difference between how this is currently zoned, which is industrial, means that people are not there at night. And we don't have concentrations of people. So we are being asked to put concentrations of people there in this area that we know is going to flood at some point. And hopefully it's going to be an inconvenience flood and not a fatality flood like the flood in Texas or like the flood in Hurricane Katrina. So I guess if I can turn that into a question, are there other things, Emma, that can be done, like having a berm or trying to minimize the amount of flooding if we should get a 500-year flood? Are there things from an engineering standpoint that can be done not to prevent flooding, but to minimize it, such as a berm or a storm wall, or is that impractical? Is that just going to push the problem downriver?
Chair, through you, I'd personally, for myself, be cautious on speaking to this because I don't have an engineering degree. However, I do know as well that through the brownfield research process, they did go through kind of proposing different development situations, and I believe research was done with this. And to also your point of can you help reinforce the Laramie River and potentially other locations to minimize flooding? And I'd maybe see to Philip, who has been here longer, but I thought there had been some efforts to try to reinforce the river. However, where that's at, or if that was done like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I'm not aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the reality as well is, having previous service, the volume of water that now is entering the Laramie River has to be moved in some fashion, whether it's through storm drains, whether it's direct transport to the river. There's a huge increase in the volume of water that has to be moved. And the downstream, movement of that water rather than infiltration. So it's an important consideration, and not only is the safety an issue, but there's a lot of hydrology there that is subject to change. I think, Laramie obviously is dealing with a lot of issues related to that in places that are far less vulnerable than that particular area.
nothing else? And I'll ask if the public would like to comment on this. Remember, this is, even though we've gone off far afield, this is about the comprehensive plan and the change in land use in the comprehensive plan. So if anybody wants to comment on that, feel free, just come up, state your name and speak away. Anybody online? We have one.
My name is Eric Henderson. I'm a resident of West Side on Pine Street, actually. And with respect to the Thrive data, where multi-unit housing is deemed a great answer to the housing need in this community, I'd just like to remind you, my understanding of that survey is that 148 respondents, 3% indicated that dense housing was desired. Single family, much more desired. Also, in city council operations, both Mayor Cumby and City Manager Janine Jordan have indicated for decades that our infrastructure for drainage has been underfunded. So therefore, any development of any kind that would affect the watershed to my neighborhood, the streets of Fremont, Cedar streets are already stressed during normal rains, not even 100-year rains. And as such, this screams of great concern as a resident adjacent to this. Many people, they may remember 260 North Pine Street's development, where traditionally 3 city spaces might have had one home with a density of 12 people in a family. Now you're looking at 6 duplexes that'll have perhaps 24 to 48 residents in them. And the traffic and the expansion of that. Plus, we're paving, in order to allow for that space, we're paving an alley that's a 14 or 15-foot alley, and we're increasing the watershed on 2 drains of from Bernie's corner at Clark and Pine and Fremont. You have 2 drains. You have two drains that are already overwhelmed on Cedar Street, and you're looking to do these types of things before you don't have an engineer here tonight. That's valuable information that's foregone, and though probably not intentional, quite valuable to come into the planning. I don't know how you could not table this without having that type of information to move forward and make recommendations at all. The proposed change from urban, imagining retail, there's the retail space with housing above it. Look at the vacancy of retail space available in our community already. This is not necessarily the answer for us as a community. However, as a property owner, I don't have any problem with the property owner doing what they like with the property. However, they bought the property zoned as it is. And I'd like to see no change in that regard until much more is known with drainage. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, I think we need to,
Any more discussion between us?
yeah, I think that we need to see about talking about this. My opinion is we are in desperate need of housing. Now, I know that the position of the Laramie Chamber of Commerce is to push for mostly single-family residential, which would limit the amount of people there. Although R3 would allow them to build apartments, I know that they understand that the main need of Laramie right now is single-family residents. Entry-level single-family residents. We don't need a bunch of $600,000 spec homes. What we need is, 2,500 square foot lots with 1,000 to 1,100 square foot homes on them. We won't know what the landowners have in mind until we get to the preliminary plat stage. And at that time, we can all really see what they've got in mind for drainage. I am concerned about flooding as much as everybody else here, but I'm also concerned about the fact that, I mean, well, you could take the Thrive 2000, whatever that plan was, and toss it in the round file because it's of absolutely no use. We're never going to get another 14,000 residential units in this town before 2030. I mean, that's a pipe dream. It ain't going to happen. But if we could get 60, 70, 80 homes on this parcel, it's, I think it's worth doing and worth at least letting the engineers have a crack at it and see what they can do. And maybe we may even be able to get more. I mean, there are ways to deal with, mitigating flooding and stormwater. And I think it's odd to the city to do something about the drainage in West Laramie that's totally separate from this. I mean, I think West Laramie is in a crisis situation right now for stormwater. And anybody, all you got to do is go down and look at the storm drains on Cedar Street. They're clogged, they're silted. Every time we get a cloud pass by and we have branches of trees falling into the storm drains. So I think West Laramie has other issues to address with the city. I don't think, no matter whether it's industrial or residential, this particular parcel is not going to fix the stormwater situation in West Laramie. That's infrastructure that has to come from an entirely different source. So that's the way I feel about it.
Well, I think to the point that, with Donald made, that if the owner wants to put commercial on here and people aren't sleeping there at night, that putting homes in an area that just screams flooding to me, that makes a lot of sense to keep it the way that it is, and or let the comprehensive plan process go through and let the update deal with these problematic areas adjacent to the Laramie River with maybe more information about how the stormwater system may play out and be effective. And Commissioner White's comment about impervious surfaces, it just makes a bad situation worse to encourage development at all, much commercial, much less residential. So I don't know, I'm leaning towards no.
Sure.
I'm interested in asking, I'm interested in a little bit more information about our options at this point, because one thing I heard and was written in the staff report is that 4 of the 5 of us have to vote yes for it to happen. So it's obviously a pretty significant decision. We don't have 2 people here. we could, I don't know.
Postpone it?
We could table it and postpone it. I guess I'm curious from the staff's perspective, if we move forward to vote on it and we don't get the four votes, can we still come back to it, or would it be better for us to just postpone it? Then I think also the other, I don't, this may be very important to the two people that are here, although they did get notice that it was going to happen.
Well, well, basically, if we vote no on the comprehensive plan, I don't know how binding is, how binding is a comprehensive plan? Would it make the rezoning a moot issue? Yeah, I think it does. So, yeah, so basically, we're telling the landowner he can't do any changes. I mean, there's a lot of problems with this site. And it's going to be a difficult site to work with, no matter what goes in there. Start with, right now it's landlocked. You can't access it from anywhere. So if somebody makes a deal and offers somebody $1 million to go in there and put a packing plant in, it's perfectly legal and it won't even come before this body or the city council. It just go get a permit and put in a packing plant. And, it's the kind of thing that we have to, do we want to wait? I would like to wait until we get a full body to vote on this myself. Because I think it's an important enough issue for the city of Laramie's future that it deserves the full body's attention.
Jason engineer, could provide some perspective.
Yep. Donald?
So I think we should table this because I have questions about what can be done engineering wise. I guess I'm skeptical, having seen what the Mississippi does when it floods in southern Illinois, and the kind of damage it can do. And we think we know the climate is changing, and we think we're seeing more flooding. And what we would effectively be doing is giving a thumbs up to putting more people in a floodplain. And that to me seems unwise because there are other places around Laramie that are not going to get flooded. And I know that is not incorporated in the city, but at least if that area is zoned for housing, and we desperately need housing. My son has left this town and has moved, may God help him, to Pittsburgh because he couldn't afford to buy a house in this town. And he's just going to find his career elsewhere. And that's probably a story that is repeated all across town. So we do need housing. The question is, do we need housing at this site? And do we need to have concentrated housing? We know we need cheaper housing and affordable housing, but we will be putting people in harm's way. So I would be in support of tabling this until we have more information. Can people who have houses in this area, will they be able to get mortgages? Will people in this area be able to get flood insurance? Those are two key questions. I had another question which I didn't ask, but I'll just mention. This is a brown post-industrial site. And although the soil sampling indicate the soil in this area, in this patch, is generally pretty good, on the periphery of that site, there are more contaminated areas. And if there's a flood, I just had a question of, is that going to leach out some of those contaminants, send them into the Laramie River and send that stuff downstream? So I have a few questions, but I'm an ignorant veterinarian, but I would really suggest that we table this.
Yeah, we're real sorry about your choice of career. I have hands raised in the public. I don't know what the procedure is at this point, but nobody spoke earlier. I think we're off on the zoning question more than the comprehensive plan question in our discussion. But I think if we table this, it makes the zoning question moot. And there's no point in doing it. Is that correct? Would we have to table both of them
Well,
together?
I think, I'd like to, for the people who came, I mean, I think if we table it, there's no sense in moving forward. But I would be game for giving the people who are here the opportunity to share their comments on the issue. Otherwise, I mean, I don't know, that, I think that's respectful. But there's no need to.
I
move forward
agree. Is
to-
anybody else? I mean, it's out of line. It's not quite Robert's Rules of Order, but I mean, is there anything prohibiting it, clerk?
No, I think you could open it back up. I did want to also mention, you do have a term expiring the end of October as well, but just, you know,
Who's expiring?
member Evans.
Okay. All right, well, we'll drag somebody in off the street and put them in the chair. All right, who wants to, it's the will of the commission that we let the public continue this discussion. You had your hand up first, why don't, no, the fellow in the yellow, orange sweatshirt.
Thank you. I was just gonna comment on the zoning side instead of this side. So I'm Craig Aldridge with Prairie Equipment.
Honorable Chair, I'm sorry if I can just jump in. I'm sorry, sir, but I think a motion and action should be taken on the comprehensive plan amendment before we go to the rezoning.
Well, I was going to speak on the rezoning, but when they're gonna table it, it's the same comments. I was just gonna do it once. I could do whatever. I can sit down and shut up, so.
Derek, hang on.
Chair, if your desire is to make sure that you get public comment from the people that are here on the rezoning, what I'd recommend is you complete this item. We can do it a kind of an abbreviated staff report because presumably we would need to see a postponement on this, but you can still open the zoning item to public comment to allow everybody to speak on the item that if they're going to talk on zoning. That way they're just speaking to the actual topic at hand versus the incorrect application is all I would suggest there.
Is
So
that acceptable to everybody?
So
Yeah,
then-
what, hang on a minute.
Yeah,
We'll
there you
get
go.
through this and then you can speak your piece. Philip, the procedure is now we have a motion to table this. Do we need a date certain or?
Chair, yes, it would be ideal. The next meeting is October 13th, if you want to go to the next planning commission meeting.
All right, and that would be before the vacancy occurs, right?
Yes, I believe the deputy clerk said that's at the end of October, right? Yeah.
All right, the chair will entertain a motion.
So I make a motion that we table this until our next meeting, when hopefully there will be an engineer present to answer some of the questions we have. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion to table by O'Toole, seconded by Buccino. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You say public comment on the motion. In a second.
Can we take
Yeah.
public comment on the motion?
Yeah.
All right, we'll take public comment on the motion to table this. Yeah.
Honorable Chair, members of the commission, thank you for allowing me to get back up here again. I just had two things on this point. Flooding, which seems to be a very huge topic, and it is indeed a major concern. If you look at Richards Park next to the middle school, that is a detention pond it's called Scout Park. Sorry, my apologies. It's a detention pond for Richards Park to handle their water runoff. If you look at Laramie River Business Park, which is a development we've done, we took a portion that was right against the river. It is a flood zone. And we made that a common area. There's a gazebo there, and then we used the trail to connect through to the greenbelt, which you can't access sometimes because it's underwater. My last point is I would urge you not to table this because of the message it sends to the applicant, to the property owners, that maybe Laramie isn't ready for housing. Maybe we're not ready to move forward. I understand the need and the desire to get more information, but we're not at the planning of what the land will be stage. We are at the comprehensive plan change and a zoning change to allow for more usage to the landowner or future landowners. And that's all we're asking here today. And to table it, I think would be unnecessary and it would be a bad thing. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to comment on the motion to table? Go ahead.
Earlier, I heard in discussion that what happens in this particular parcel doesn't affect West Laramie. I would tell you as a resident with a water table awareness that I have currently, all watershed effects, the amount of water running down that river does affect the water table, and therefore any of the shed that would happen on any development should have, I would expect, would have an additional impact on that water table. Underground, you can be flooded as badly as up top, and that type of thing becomes a greater concern. That's all I have to add. Thanks.
Anything else? All right. I have a motion on the floor and it's been approved. Does anybody wish to change their vote on this?
I just want to, I mean, I think we should vote again, having heard that.
Okay.
Because we probably should have taken that comment before we voted. But I think it just points, I'm not comfortable voting on this now. I think the points that were made, I heard one additional piece of information that would be useful, which is just the floodplain map, because it isn't the whole parcel that's in the floodplain or just a small part of it. But I think we've committed to not sit on this, but to get some specific information and take it back up at our next meeting. So I'm not too concerned about the message that it's sending, because we're committed to acting on it, just not today.
And my point was not that we should ignore what happens on any parcel of land. My point is that the problems in West Laramie are not going to be fixed with this development. They may be made worse, but they're not going to be made any better. The problems with drainage in West Laramie is a problem of infrastructure. And right now the city's involved in a real big discussion about that, trying to find a way to fund it. So I think everybody here knows my opinion on it, but I think that we need to keep our focus on residential property. This city really needs it. I think there's nothing on this site that can't be engineered, but we need to hear from the engineers. So I'm in favor of tabling it, and hopefully we can get some kind of engineering estimates or somebody to speak on what can be done to mitigate the flooding potential from this parcel. Anybody else?
Just, I'd like to make a comment to the person who's speaking for the Business Alliance. I don't think anybody in this group or anybody who's on the planning commission is against having affordable housing in Laramie. We all, and in my case, very personally, support that. We just, there's some questions we have. I hope the applicant does not take the message, we think this is a bad plan. We just don't have enough information. I do not want to be between two planks, buried under 6 feet of soil, and someone says, you're right, there was a flood, there's 10 people dead. And I think that that's something we need to weigh in the balance. This is a very interesting suggestion or proposal. It's somebody who's taken a risk, or it's a group of people who are taking a risk. But before we kind of take the first step down this road, if we do take that step, we just want some kind of assurances and some enlightenment about what the risk is. And I hope you can convey that to the person who made the proposal, please. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded to table this to our next meeting on the 13th of October. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Emma, you're up.
Good afternoon again, Honorable Chair and Planning Commission. I'll be really brief since it'll likely have the same motion as the last. But again, this is the second application associated with this parcel, the rezoning to rezone the same 32-acre 4G Enterprises property from industrial to multifamily residential, and staff also includes the same recommendation to include that southern acre. The current I-2 zoning reflected this property's industrial past as being near the Union Pacific Rail Corridor. History is no longer relevant, and industrial uses would be incompatible with the West Side neighborhood, Optimus Park, and the Laramie River. Leaving I-2 zoning in place creates the risk of reintroducing heavy uses with noise, truck traffic, and pollutants for health risks for both the river and the adjacent neighborhood. And staff is not willing to take that risk. And so staff recommends approval, and we'll go ahead and move to any questions and public comment. Thank you all.
Any questions? All right. Anybody else want to address the issue of the zoning of this parcel? Don, oh, yeah.
Just a quick question for Emma. What's the meaning of the phrase a regulatory floodway? What does that mean?
A regulatory floodway is the portion of, if a flood were to happen, it would be where the moving flood is. So again, think that's the flood area where houses could be swept away, where it's moving. Then more outside of that is more of where you're going to probably get more standing water.
So when you sent me the link to the USDA flood map,
Mhm.
what color is the regulatory floodway?
That is the blue that is primarily along the river, and there are some places in kind of like those little elbows
Right.
that it extends into it.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Now we'll go to the public on the zoning. Anybody wish to address the zoning issue?
Thank you. Craig Aldrich, Curry Equipment. We own the 12 acres to the east of this parcel. Everything but the Spiegelberg building. Essentially from Ellenbecker Oil to Clark Street. Plus I own a property on the corner of Cedar and Clark, plus I own a property on the corner of Cedar and Grand. So I have all my personal investments right next door to this. I don't have an issue with this at all. I am pro-business. I've been in business all my life. Some of the questions that came up for me and came up with you are infrastructure. I bought that 12-acre parcel. I asked the city if I could put in a 3/4 water tap. I can't get a 3/4 water tap because there's no infrastructure. It's not an issue until you go to build, but if I can't get a 3/4 water tap on my property, there's not enough water to supply that property for an industrial, let alone 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever houses. I don't have an issue. I'm just saying that's going to be an issue. Another comment I have is once you convert it to R3, it's going to be impossible to put it back. I am in I-2 and I bought that parcel for I-2 because I'm a commercial construction company. I did it on purpose. I wanted to be in the city. I wanted to be part of the community. I am going to be isolated if this goes through. I don't have a problem with it going through. We need housing. You need to know where I stand. I'm going to be isolated with an I-2 parcel. Spiegelberg, who's not here to speak for themselves, is going to be isolated with only University Avenue as their only ingress and egress. They're going to be hosed, to put it nicely. My other concern has nothing to do with the planning committee, but there's no access to this parcel short of off of Garfield unless the state opens up. I have 4 streets that dead end on my parcel. Utilities, and I'm all for it. I mean, I'm not against it, but all those utilities have to come through me, which then changes the value of my properties. I lose to streets, I lose to infrastructure, it needs to be done. I'm not against it, but it personally affects me. I would have to ask the question is, could you change the zoning contingent on a viable plan? Leave it I-2 and say, hey, you bring forth a viable plan that addresses the flooding, addresses the groundwater that this gentleman brought up, addresses all these, and then yeah, we'll gladly change it. I just have to question, are we putting the cart in front of the horse to change it to R3? And then not be able to develop a viable plan. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Chair, Commissioners. My name is Gwendolyn Christie. I own a home and live in it at 120 South Cedar, right next to Prairie Equipment. And I'd like to say personally, I'm in favor of developing housing in our community, especially diverse housing, and things that people my age can afford. But I do have several concerns with a change from industrial to residential zoning, despite the reiteration throughout tonight that it's currently zoned industrial and a cement plant could go in or whatever, nothing ever has, right? It's remained an open, untouched space for, since the inception of Laramie as a city. And so I don't think that that should be a primary concern. We brought it up a lot tonight, but it's not that I think this development would help flooding on my property. My property floods every time it rains. There's not a storm drain on my block already. And so the fact that it would just get worse and I'd continue to have to pay for damage on my property is a big concern for me. And so there's a statement in the 2022 report that's cited in the city's recommendation that there are no environmental concerns, I think is a pretty big fallacy. I'm also concerned with the historic scale of the existing West Side neighborhood, and that the neighborhood would not be part of the if it's changed to residential, would not be part of the developer's process, including our neighborhood. The current taxpayers and current homeowners wouldn't be part of that discussion. We've been, railed on that kind of thing before in our neighborhood. And we're primarily concerned about the height and the footprints of new construction in and around our historic district neighborhood that is, typified by small homes. And I also have a concern about developing in, the remaining wildlife corridor, natural corridor that goes through town. Not only the natural beauty of it and concerns for wildlife, but the quality of life in the area. The city is currently concerned with and spending a lot of money on beautification of our city, on entering the city and not having it, look crappy. And I think IKEA particle board apartment buildings would look really bad. And I think we're scared that that's what would happen. So my request is not that the rezoning not be considered, it's that it be considered incredibly thoughtfully and with community input. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That personal question.
Yes, I think it's out of order to engage in question and answer with the public on public comments. I don't know. I think that's not allowed, is it?
Generally. they
Yeah.
don't, but-
Wendy, you're up next.
Chair and Commissioners.
State your name for the record.
Thank you. My name is Wendy Chapman, and I'm a resident of the West Side for 27 years now. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to this topic. Today, I am asking you to oppose rezoning this area to R3 and instead ask that the request be changed to R2, like most of the existing residential West Side. As most of you know, flooding is a big problem on the West Side as things stand right now. I expect that the city has records of dates and locations of flooding. Adding buildings and impermeable surfaces to the 4G area would only compound these problems. I know the city has plans to improve storm drainage, but it seems that they are still in the process of figuring out how to pay for this enormous project. As you can probably tell, my first choice would be to keep the land and the river as it is. It would be easier for rainwater to move downstream, and the land could continue to absorb rainwater, protecting us better from flooding. Before any development is approved, flooding maps for that area from FEMA should be part of the discussion. And if any development happens there, what is the plan for maintaining flood height elevations for those of us already living on the west side? How would new development there affect our property values, especially with the increased risk of flooding? If I were to get my wish and the land remains as it is, how do we mitigate this for the owners of the 4G property? If we can all agree that this land has the most value to Laramie as it is now, a greenway and a floodplain, could we work with the Office of State Lands? Could it be traded for other land? If development on the 4G land is approved, we would ask that the owners work with us to come up with a plan that would work for everyone, including R2 zoning instead of R3. I bought my home on the west side 27 years ago. I know others who have bought homes there much more recently and love living on the west side. I implore you to work with us to maintain this beloved neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Well, does commission have any wish to discuss this? I have a comment, if you don't mind. I would like to let the public know that it's pretty obvious from tonight, this commission is very concerned with drainage, with flooding, with stormwater, and also with residential housing. I believe personally that there's a way this can be worked out. And I'd like to see us do that. Nobody on this commission or in the planning department is gonna short shirt anybody on water, on drainage or flooding. And nobody in the city will either. I mean, that's the major topic of conversation right now in the entire city, trying to figure out how to do this. But that's all I've got to say. Sharon, you had something?
I'm just glad that we heard the testimony that was provided. I think it was important to inform us going forward. So thank you.
Well, there's no other discussion. The chair will entertain a motion.
So are you asking for motion to table this as well?
Yeah, because I don't think we can vote it down. It's basically it's a moot point, so we should just table it. And without changing the comprehensive plan, we're just doing this, as a performer item. So I'd say table it following the discussion on the comprehensive plan.
So I move that we also table this item. For October 13th.
Do I hear a second? All right, I have a motion by O'Toole, second by Moody. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. I think, let's see. Unless there's anything else from staff, then the chair will entertain a motion. Jana, you give it to us. Laramie.
Long days.
Second.
It's second. All those in favor? Aye. This meeting is adjourned. Please come again. I'm on the west side. Sure. This.